Sarah, what room did you use?
I was using your room because it was unlocked.
Okay, I'll just go. There's another. So the one of the rooms that we used yesterday, they don't want us to.
Bartok?
This is Bartok. Come on in, Jacob. Jake. Jacob. Jacob's good. Come on in. Okay, so you can be wherever you like. It'd be fine. And you don't have to sign into Zoom if you don't want to. But Anthony's here in person, Trisha's here online, and Jacob is here in person with no computer, which is fine.
Socially distant.
Yeah. Definitely, we won't catch anything. Okay, so Bartok's Concerto for Orchestra was composed originally in 1943. Bartok had left Hungary due to, guess what? World War II. Yeah, World War II. And moved to New York City, which was actually kind of interesting because most of the expats from World War II didn't go to New York. They went to LA. Yes, that's where Schoenberg was. That's where Rachmaninoff was. All sorts of folks in LA around Hollywood. And you can read all about them in the book by Harpo Marx called Harpo Speaks. And it's quite fascinating. He talks about Schoenberg walking around with a violin case with ping pong paddles in it. You didn't know Schoenberg had a sense of humor. Anyway, Bartok, however, was in New York City, and he was in 1943. He was in the hospital. He had been diagnosed with leukemia, and he wasn't doing very well at all. And then Serge Koussevitzky came to the hospital in person to say, "We want to commission you to write a piece for us." It must have been New York Phil. Koussevitzky, probably. Boston. Okay. And he told him he had this commission. And what Bartok's response is he just picked up all his stuff and left the hospital and wrote the piece, which is quite interesting. And the Concerto for Orchestra is one of his most commonly played pieces, one of his favorite pieces. And people are like, why do you call it a concerto for orchestra? Because usually concerto is for the hero pitted against the orchestra. And he called it that because he gave soloistic parts to every section of the orchestra. And you'll see that very definitely in the movement that we will play. Also, he rewrote the ending in 1945 in February. That's important because he died in September of 45. So this is one of his last works. It's a fairly large piece, 25 minutes. Not, by Mahler standards, it's one movement. But we don't all have to write long pieces like Mahler. And there were some interesting things about it. That he hadn't written a tempo. Well, he'd written crotchet equals 74, and Schulte was trying to do that, and the musicians are all like, this feels too slow. And the percussionist said, my part says the crotchet quarter note is 94. So then they recorded it at 94. But people had done that previously to that. Please, Ani, you can get signed in. Concerto for Orchestra. Anyway, the name of this movement, it's kind of interesting because some people call it the game of pairs. People who have done research on it say it's actually the presentando locopi, which is the presentation of couples. In the middle section, which is a brass chorale, is the marriage. And so when the A section returns at the beginning, you're supposed to play it differently because now they're all married. I had not heard that before, but I always take talking about these pieces as an excuse to go find out more stuff than I already knew. It's kind of a fun way to go about things. What's interesting to me about this is he chose the pairs. First, you have a pair of, where did I put that? It's in another folder. Starts with a pair of oboes, bassoons, clarinets, flutes, trumpets. So it's pairs within the orchestra and it's all wind. So he doesn't do the strings as part of the pairs. So they are not having the light shown on them for this piece. The glue for the whole piece is the side drum that starts the piece at quarter note equals 94, not 74. And it is a glue. And what I want you to listen for, particularly all of you right now, is the transition from the chorale section, which is shorter, back to the A section. Listen to how he gets you back. Because honing in on what composers do for transitions is really an important thing, because we all need to write transitions all the time. And that's what composers do that songwriters tend not to do, right? Songwriters write and they have their form and they do all of that. But composers are always thinking, how I'm going to write these kind of things and how am I going to get from one to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And different composers do different things. There isn't a right thing or a wrong thing. There are just different things. So we're going to listen to it now. We'll look at the score later. And this one here says Gioco della Copie, which is game of pairs. Is the second movement out of 5. And this is the recording, I believe, with Seiji Ozawa conducting. And I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was a pretty famous conductor for quite some time, and one of the first Japanese American, or I think he came from Japan, but I think he became American conductors. So, not European conductor. Enjoy this piece. I'm hoping the sound will be good. Bassoons first. Always. Trumpets. We've added a third bassoon. Retardando didn't happen the first time. You notice it ended how it started. What all did you notice? I know Jacob has heard it before. Have you heard it before, son? Yeah. And have you heard it before? No? And Alex, have you heard it before? So what did you notice? Are you unmuted so Patricia can hear you?
Yeah, the drum was like going the entire time. It was like the base of it.
Yeah, the glue. Absolutely. That's a good thing to notice. So you can have something like that. In a way, it functions like an ostinato, right? It's even during the brass chorale. It was interesting me to listen to it for the first time since I learned that it was possibly a wedding ceremony in the middle. Had you heard that before?
No.
No. Isn't that cool? What did you hear, Zani?
It just sort of, I guess, like, it felt like very consistent energy. Well, I felt a little bit, but it stayed in this, like, sort of middle place where you're never supposed to be, like really, really taken aback, but it never gets, like, really slow. It's just a very consistent, very slow swell then decline, I guess. So that was interesting. It was still interesting to listen to, even though there weren't, like, highs and lows that I thought were.
Yeah, it doesn't have a huge climax, does it?
Yeah.
There's the beautiful brass chorale in the middle that definitely has a. I have to let you in, Donnie. Sorry, you're under my little thing. The brass chorale feels like sort of an arrival and a calm space in the middle of it all. You're right. There is sort of a consistent energy. Trisha, did you hear anything? You have to remute.
Just the same thing as I think Anthony said, the drums were going the entire time.
Now we're going to listen to the opening again, and I'm going to give you a hint. The pair of instruments are at a consistent interval. And I want to see how many you can figure out. And by consistent, I mean either I'll give you one that isn't there, perfect fourth. Everything would be a perfect fourth. You wouldn't have the tritone in there that you would get if you were using the major scale. It's all perfect fourths, or all major seventh, or all minor second, or all something. So it's not really in a key, because in a key, you'd have, if you had thirds, you'd have major thirds and minor thirds. And if you have seconds, you'd have major seconds and minor seconds. So first up are the bassoons. Of course, after the side drum. Actually, I should have you notate that. You feel like it's one thing, but that is such an organic rhythm, isn't it? We have to listen to that again before we listen for the others. What interval? Was it big or little? Far apart or close together?
It's a small interval.
Actually, it's not. It's the next to largest one in the piece.
Thank you very much.
So, did anybody tell what it is? I'll play just a little thing. You sing two notes. Ba-da-dum. That's the upper one. What's the lower one doing? I think that's the upper one. Go back. Close. Yeah. It's a sixth. Can you tell if it's a major sixth or a minor sixth? It's not easy. This one for me is the hardest one of the whole set.
Because it's not like a minor third or more than a major sixth.
It's actually a minor sixth. So now listen to those bassoons playing knowing it's a minor sixth. Isn't it? And one of the things you can do is go to a practice room and play minor sixths where it's all minor sixths, and play major sixths where it's all major sixths so you can hear the difference. That's your challenge. Okay, now we're going to listen to the oboes. Any ideas? Were they
It sounds like thirds to me, but I don't know.
thirds? What kind of thirds? Happy thirds or sad thirds?
It sounded like minor, but that's because I feel like the key was minor.
It's minor. Yes, minor thirds. Excellent, Zani. Okay, and next we're going to have the clarinet. Far apart or close together?
Kind of far.
And if it's further, and I took, this is the largest one.
Sevenths.
Yep, what kind? If it were major, it'd sound pretty edgy. So it's minor seventh. You get the flutes. What do you think? It's interesting how hard it is to hear these. I have the score up. We're going to look at it too. Close. Convert your fourths and you get fifths. That's parallel fifths. I think the easy one is the last one. These are still fifths, but no tritones. And I love this little viola part. What's that? It's the easiest one to hear, I think. Trisha, any ideas? I'll play a little more. Close together or far apart? Both. Does it sound like mosquitoes?
Close
No.
together.
What do you say, Trisha?
Is it far apart? Or
It's major seconds apart.
it's major seconds. Okay. That's what I was
Major-
thinking. I thought it was a minor second.
Minor seconds would sound really, really crazy. So what I want you to do is literally go to the practice room and try playing parallel minor seconds. Hear what that sounds like. Play parallel major seconds. It won't sound like it's in a key. Play parallel perfect fifths, parallel minor sevenths, minor thirds, minor sixths, major sixths, and see how he decided what he wanted to start with. Yeah.
Are the
Unmute.
individual melodies in keys by themselves if you ignore their like relationship to the other one, or are they also kind of just like all over the place?
Well, we'll look at the score, but they really have to be all over the place, don't they? It's just the nature of the beast. If you're doing all, like a whole tone scale is all major seconds. So the major second part sounds kind of whole tone, right? And all of them will sound not in a key, not in a key. Why do you suppose he did the trumpets last?
Goes into the horn round?
It goes into the chorale. Horns don't play first, they play last. It's, you're thinking brass as
Yeah,
was.
like the brass, like brass.
Yeah, brass sound. And they play right away without mute because they're muted here and they're without mute. Now, he has these little pairs. All of the pairs play the same length of time. They play the same material. Not at all. And this is because it really is concerto for orchestra. So he's writing solo passages for each of these pairs of instruments that are idiomatic for that instrument. Okay. So when the oboe plays, what do you expect to see more of in the oboe part than you would see, say, in the clarinet part? Faster notes? No, clarinets can play really fast. What do oboists need to do more often than almost anybody else?
Breathe.
Actually, not the breathe, but rest. You need to rest because it is a physically exhausting instrument to play. Who needs to breathe the most often?
Flute.
Yes, flute. Flute takes way more air than the tuba, which is really interesting. You can put tuba players who like, oh, flute. is for those girls to play. Of course, that isn't always the case, but you put them on a flute and they go, ah, ah, I need to breathe. So he's written idiomatic stuff. So this means that this piece can be a resource for you to go to if you're writing for, say, flute. The flutes have a ton of notes. Did you notice that? They play a long time. Well, it's because they can. They have lots of rest. They need to breathe often, but they can play for a long time. The oboes need breaks and they can't play for as long. So their part isn't quite as long. I did feel like the clarinet part could have been much faster and much longer because clarinets can do that. He didn't do that. So if you're researching clarinet, don't look at this piece for that. Trumpet, I think that's really good writing for the trumpet because it's a lot of stepwise motion. Honey,
Oh,
yeah.
I was wondering, was this written before or after Bolero?
Bolero, Ravel, you know?
After, because it feels like kind of a response to that, in that, I mean, you still have the drum thing
Oh, yeah,
going
would
throughout
be.
the entire thing,
Mhm.
but then rather than having this different instruments play basically the same thing and getting a build that way, it's kind of subverting that, I guess.
Yeah, but it's also, Bolero is a orchestration virtuosic piece. Ravel was a fabulous orchestrator, so he's somebody you can study his scores to find out how to do orchestration really well. Who knows how much the Hungarians listened to the French? No, he might have, but definitely it's more melodically interesting because the bolero is like repeat, 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 repeat with orchestration changes. I did want to share with you score so you can see. Got to share a different screen. Yeah, which I believe I have. Here it is. This is on IMDb because he's been gone long enough that it's in the common domain. He doesn't do the winds in pairs. For those of you who know, the standard orchestra is winds in pairs, 4 horns, 2 or 3 trumpets, 3 trombones. Well, they've got 3 trombones too, but so most of it is the same, except he's got winds in trios instead of winds in pairs. Okay. In the 20th century, people included things like airplane engines. Was that Satie who did the airplane engines? I think so. It sounds like Satie, doesn't it? Oh, this is not the first movement. I'm sorry, I didn't cue it up. I'm gonna move all of you over to here and pull it down a ways. This looks like it. 29. Oh, 34, 33, 32. Thank you. Here we go. And here it does say game of couples or game of pairs, but the research says it isn't that. So look at this complicated. I'm going to do this because this, you can see it easier, I think. Is that a little easier to see? Move you guys down to the bottom. That's a complicated thing. But there's enough similarity in it. You feel like, oh, I know what he's doing. Then you look at it and go, oh my word, that man really crafted this. But what clef is this for the bassoon 1?
Alto.
No.
Oh, it's tenor, isn't it?
It's
tenor.
tenor. There are 3 instruments that use the tenor clef when they go high. 1 wind, 1 brass, 1 string. So this is the wind. Who's the brass instrument that uses the tenor clef?
Trombone.
Trombone. And who is the string instrument that uses the tenor clef?
Cello.
Cello.
Although, ask Randall about it if you're writing for him, because he's not very fond of that tenor clef. And don't use it for like 1 measure. He'd rather relate it to the measure before. And I think he maybe even likes treble clef better than tenor clef. But there you go. So it makes it harder to see that this is minor 6 for those of us who don't know. Well, this note, of course, wherever the two humps meet is middle C, so the first bassoon starts on D. And for whoever it was that was asking about what key it's in, you notice no key signature. It's not in a key. I used to always use key signatures until a friend of mine said, "Why are you using a key signature? Your piece would be much more comprehensible without it." So anyway, so we have the bassoons and they're bopping around, but it's mostly stepwise. The bassoons can do big leaps, but it seems to work well, and they can do trills rather nicely, and they have a wide range that they can cover in a short amount of time. That's what you're learning from this. And the strings are playing along. They're doing pizzicato and their accompaniment through all of this. Then the oboes come in, mostly stepwise, and they've got the two staccato notes here that gives them just a little bit of a breather before they go up to the high note. This to me was a very challenging part for oboes, for them to go on as long as they do. It's not all that long, but that's a long passage for oboes, just telling you. Because I've written for oboes and they don't like to go for too long. So here now the clarinets, they are in A. So that means that this A here is not an A, it is sharp sounding. Very good, Kevin. He's not even attending, but he's attending. And they go on, they're not doing too many giant leaps, but you see they're the ones that get to go really high. It's the altissimo range, and he wrote them mezzo forte. They would not be able to play softer than mezzo forte up there. And nice little notes, but no double tonguing. You do not double tongue or triple tongue on the clarinet. And I feel like they could have played much longer than they played. And written B, this here is a little tricky, I believe, because it's written B is in the clarion range, written G is in the throat register. And going back and forth between the clarion and the throat, that is challenging because the throat register, you have basically like no fingers down. And in the clarion, when you start it, you have all your fingers down. So the tube is really long. When you take your fingers off, it's really short. I wanted to show you as well, measure 159. Takes a little while to, how close am I getting? I'm getting there, sort of. After the chorale. Oh, still not. Let's go. Now I went too far. Sorry, I wanted you to see the transition because I'm trying to focus on things that you need. Here we are, 159. So here's the chorale. The horns get the end of the chorale, right? And they are horns in F. Horns can be in all sorts of different keys. They used to play with tubing on their arms called crooks. And if they had to be in the key of D, they would pull out the D crook and put it on their instrument. And then they were playing a natural horn in D, no valve. But nowadays they're in F and they have valves, which is a good thing. Anyway, so here we start with, this is a little sticky motive. And these are all sounding same, right? Your clarinet switched to B flat. Interesting. Okay. He's passing it over the orchestra, so you get this cool panning effect from now I hear the flute maybe is over here, maybe the clarinet is over here. It's the same notes, but when it pops around different colors like that, it stays interesting. And then you lead into the bassoons coming back and they go D, E, F, which is whole step, half step, where this is half step, half step. But it starts with 3 notes going up, right? And this is a slight variation on your 3 notes going up to lead you back to A section. I encourage you to think about colors that they're doing. Oh, and here he painted. Did you see this? I just noticed this one is whole step, half step. Whole step, half step. Yeah, so some of them are half step, half step. Some of them are whole step, half step. Did you hear that when you listened to it? I think it's way cool what he did. Quite the composer. And then we come back and things are a little different because he adds a third bassoon part and all of that. Do you have questions or comments about the piece now? Like I said, you can go study this. IMSLP has this very score because this is the one that I did. And I guess we are at the end of our time because we're supposed to end 40 minutes. If anyone has questions, they may ask them. Do you know the piece, Trisha?
No, I haven't heard this one, but I really like Bartok's Hungarian folk dances. Have you heard that one?
Yeah.
Oh, that's like my favorite Bartok composition, probably.
Okay, cool. Well, I encourage you to listen to this whole piece because it is amazing. And I'm going to stop the meeting now. Trisha, I will go to my personal meeting room that I did yesterday with you.
Okay.
And see you there in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll see you. Bye.
Yeah.